it's a very, like, maraming mga nakalagay dito. So what we can see here is an entity level risk assessment, the one you can see on the left side of your screen. Entity level risk assessment. You have here the process level risk assessment, the account and assertion level risk assessment, and then again the process level risk assessment, and lastly the conclude and reporting phase of our audit. As you can see here, it is a flow chart or a diagram, meaning we need to, before we conclude or issue our audit report, we need to gone through, or we need to have all these steps. So for example, entity level risk assessment muna, and then we have the process level risk assessment, and then the account and assertion level risk assessment. We start off our audit, and I know this one is only a review of what we are doing in the audit. We start off our audit upon client acceptance and continuance. So when we talk about client acceptance and continuance, the standard or the IESPA Code of Ethics prohibits us to accept any engagement that we are not capable to provide an audit or an engagement. So what are those things that we need to consider whether we are capable to provide an audit for a particular client? So the first one would be we should be independent. So I think we have learned, or we have heard this independence in appearance and independence in fact. So the independence issue, independence topic is important when we are performing an audit. So all throughout the audit, we need to be independence in fact and also independence in appearance. So when we talk about independence in appearance, we need to see, or we need to ensure that the public views us as independent to that engagement, to that audit engagement, or even to that client, including maybe the stakeholders, the shareholders, or even those that are part of the key management roles of the client. The ESBA also mentioned that, let's say, for I think for all audit firms or even for sole practitioner, they should not accept an audit fee that will prohibits them to perform a very effective audit. So for example, students, like I think for all of the audit firms, like of course, if the audit or the client will say, okay, can you please perform an audit of this client, then we can just pay you around 1,000 pesos. In your case, let's say for us, if for an audit practitioner, we need to think, or we need to think whether that 1,000 pesos will prohibit us to perform an effective audit. We should not accept a client or an engagement that has a very low ball fee. So that's the term that was provided by the ESPA Code of Ethics, a low ball fee, meaning if that fee is very minimal, that will enable us to, let's say, to have an engagement team. Of course, in an engagement team, kasama din dito yung requirements ng ISQM or ng Philippine System of Quality Management, that you have a sufficient direction, supervision, and review to all of your engagements. So kapag masyadong maliit yung fee, and you believe that based on your assessment, based on your professional judgment, that will prohibits you to perform an effective audit, then you should not accept that kind of audit. So yung second one. And then I think the last and the most important thing is, as practitioner, or let's say you in the next 2 or 3 years, is you should be capable to provide that audit to that specific client. So ano ba yung mga sinasabi ng standard? So ang sinasabi ng standard kasi is you should be knowledgeable on that industry. Second is you have the capability. When you say about the capability, you have certain experts when performing an audit, or for example, in a telecommunication company, members of your engagement team should have an appropriate knowledge and experience to perform an audit of a telecommunication. If, for example, the client is heavily use a system, then you need to engage a specialist or your IT specialist, as in Deloitte, we are using our risk and advisory services to perform audit of an IT. So again, just for practicality, when we graduated or when we passed the board exam, not all of us are expert in the IT. So for us to be able to accept or continue an engagement or a client is we need to have an expertise or our team is capable to perform that specific audit. So yun yung first part on the client acceptance and continuance. Again, it is important for us to evaluate our capability, the capability of the team, the capability of our audit tools, the capability of our processes for us to perform an effective and sufficient audit whenever we are being engaged to audit a very specialist industry such as the telecommunication. So this is the first one of our audit process diagram. So first part pa lang na marami na requirements. And then the second one would be here, as you can see here, is the understanding of the entity and its environment. So again, when we have decided that we are capable to provide an audit to that specialized industry, and then what we're going to do is we are going to go through the second part, the second step of our entity level risk assessment, which is understanding the entity and its environment. So when we talk about understanding the entity and its environment, we will look at the internal and external factors of the entity. So when we talk about internal factors, so we look at maybe the capability of the management, the integrity of the management, as well as those external factors such as maybe the macro and microeconomic factors related to the understanding the entity and its environment. So again, when we were engaged by the client, the first thing that we need to do is we look at the understanding of the entity and its environment and how it affects the audit process. So upon the understanding of the entity and its environment, we also look at ano ba yung understanding natin ng internal controls. So when we talk about understanding of the internal controls, and as depicted by this audit process diagram, we take information that we have gathered through our entity and process level risk assessment procedures, such as the understanding of the entity and its environment and understanding the internal control by synthesizing the information and evaluating it. So again, evaluating the environment as well as the control to identify the significant accounts and disclosure and identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatements at the account level. So again, when we are performing our audit, we look first at the, let's say, balance sheet. Of course, the first process naman kasi of the audit is the client will prepare the financial statements and they will give it to us for us to perform an audit. And yung una natin ginagawa doon is we look at the financial statements line. So yung una natin ginagawa natin on that area is we need to identify which of the accounts are significant and material. So our conclusion, so that an account or disclosure is or is not significant is based on the facts obtained during our risk assessment process. So again, our risk assessment process includes the entity level risk assessment, the process risk assessment level, and also the account and assertion level risk assessment. So yung kumbaga, kung makita natin sa kanya is lahat ng mga risk assessment na ito are important for us to identify which of the accounts we need to perform an audit. Ano muna yung mga accounts? Again, not all accounts are considered to be significant, not all accounts are considered to be material, and not all accounts are considered that it is something that we need to perform an audit procedures. So clear tayo dyan, ha? Now, again, we go back on the understanding the internal controls. So when we talk about internal controls, we consider a lot of items when we talk about the internal controls. So yung internal controls naman kasi is we are performing that aspect of internal controls for us to gain an understanding of the control. So if you would remember, when we talk about audit risk, so I think na-remember niyo naman audit risk, but audit risk is the inherent risk times the control risk. Audit risk is the risk that ikaw or tayo as an accountant or a CPA will issue an audit report that is not correct, or we were not able to identify those risks that will affect our audit opinion. Yung inherent risk naman is the risk na nakakapit na doon sa accounts, while yung control risk naman is yung risk about the control. So again, it is important for us to understand the internal control before we proceed on what is the specific audit strategy that we will be employing on those accounts based on the FS line items. So I keep on mentioning about the significant accounts and etc. So again, ang first step natin when we are performing an audit, not only for telecommunication but also in other industry, is for us to identify the significant account. So the conclusion that an account or disclosure is not significant, again, is based on the facts obtained during our risk assessment process, which includes our understanding of the entity and its environment, as well as our understanding of the internal control. We also need to consider the going concern evaluation. So when we talk about going concern is, again, accounting 101 tayo, we learned that in our accounting, I forgot na yung first subject because it's long time ago. But ang sasabi kasi is, ang going concern kasi, isasabi natin doon is the entity will continue on an indefinite life. In the Philippines, sasabi noon is may 50 years, di ba, corporate life. But for accounting, is we need to consider about going concern because it will have an impact on how we are going to disclose the financial statements. The going concern again says that, okay, if the financial statements is prepared on a going concern basis, meaning indefinite life yung entity, we also need to consider that one. And also lastly, in our entity level risk assessments is about entity and fraud risk assessment. The fraud risk assessment is also a significant item when we are considering whether an account is significant or not. Why is that so? Because if an account has a heightened fraud risk, then automatically that account may be a significant account. Automatically yun, significant account siya if there is a fraud risk, if there's a heightened fraud risk. So, ano ba yung mga example ng account na may possibility na may fraud risk, heightened fraud risk? The first one would be the management override of controls. So what the BSA 240 says that the management override of controls is the management is in a very particular and a very special position for them to perpetuate fraud, to have some power over the journal entries and etc. So automatically, yung management override of control is a significant risk, and unless otherwise, na very much not really based on my experience is hindi naman siya nangyayari na you are going to have that management override of controls to not to be a significant risk. So again, after all of this assessment, we mentioned in our risk assessment procedures, we are going to identify which of the accounts or disclosure is considered to be a significant account or not. For those accounts and disclosures that are determined to be not significant and those assertions that are not relevant, when the account is quantitatively less than the materiality, we are not required to perform further audit procedures. So for example, substantive procedures and test of controls if applicable. So again, I would like to emphasize that if an account or disclosures are not determined to be significant and those assertions that are not relevant when the account is quantitatively less than your calculated materiality, we are not required to perform further audit procedures. So again, we look first at the FS line item. So tingnan natin muna yung Globe Telecom na financial statements. I hope that you have it. Nina, or Miss Edda, can you confirm whether you can see the PDF file?
Nakita ko may ilaw pa dyan.
Miss Edel? Can anyone from the group or the team can confirm whether you can see the screen, the PDF file, or you can still see the PowerPoint presentation? Okay po. Thank you, Robertson, for the confirmation. So as you can see here, again, yung sinasabi ko kasi kanina is when we look at what are those, kasi yun yung first mong itatanong when you are performing an audit. Ano ba ang mga i-consider kong accounts na kailangan kong i-test or kailangan kong perform na procedures? Again, as what the standard says, na hindi naman lahat kailangan mong i-perform na procedures because you're only obtaining a reasonable assurance on the financial statements. We are not performing 100% audit. It's always based on our risk assessment process. So as sasabi ng standard is, we look at the financial statements provided by the management. So this the statements of financial position or your balance sheet, and we look at the FS line item. So based on the FS line item, we look at whether that account is significant or not. When we talk about significant or not, okay, itong account na to ba is magkakaroon ba siya ng significant effect on the overall audit opinion or not? Second na sasabi niya is whether is it material or not. So yung materiality naman is kinoconsider niya based on our professional judgment, based on maybe sino ba yung mga users of the financial statements and ano ba ang important sa users of the financial statements. There are certain ranges when we calculate the materiality, but we are not going to discuss it right now in our session. So again, when we talk about what are those accounts and disclosures that we need to perform procedures to, we look at the FS line item first. So we have here cash and cash equivalents, trade receivables. We also look at the revenue side, the income, the cost and expenses, etc. So again, FS line item muna, and we look at whether that account is material or not based on the materiality that we have set. So again, if not significant and the account is quantitatively less than the materiality, then we are not required to perform audit procedures. For those accounts and disclosures that are determined to be not significant but exceeded the materiality. So again, significant, not significant, not material, then do not need to perform procedure. But if it's not significant but exceeded the materiality, then we need to perform risk assessment documentation. So it is required by the standard. So for ISA engagements or for international standards of audit engagement, when we determine that the account is not significant but it is quantitatively greater than the materiality, we are required to perform substantive procedures for the material class of transaction and APCO TD. So when we talk about APCO TD is the shorter version of the account balances, classes of transaction, and disclosure. So even though it is not significant, so as long as it exceeded the materiality, then kailangan ka mag-perform ng procedures as required by ISA or the International Standards of Auditing, or it is actually synonymous to the PSA. Again, we start by gathering the internal and external evidence via our data, maybe via data analytics, process walkthroughs, inquiries, and reviews of various internal and external information. So as I mentioned here, like when we are performing the understanding, we also look at the internal and external factors. So after we gather those evidences, we now execute the entity level risk assessment procedures. As part of our entity level risk assessment, we evaluate the risk factors pertaining to understanding the entity and its environment, including the financial close and reporting process. Here, the going concern assessment, also the related parties, then any litigation and claims. So, for example, if the company has an ongoing litigation or not in compliance with a certain laws and regulation, then we need also to pinpoint at that, and we need to consider those items in our risk assessment. The risk assessment procedures performed to gather information and obtaining an understanding of the entity and its environment also informs our identification and assessment of wrongs at the account level. So again, we always keep on talking about risk factors. So we dig deeper muna on our risk assessment. So when we talk about the risk factors is, as I mentioned before, the risk, again, not all risk are risk of misstatements and not all risk of misstatements are risk of material misstatements. So kailangan natin i-consider din yun. So again, we look muna on the risk. So a risk factors, again, here, as you can see here, we have the risk at the center and it is impacted by internal and external factors. So a risk factor is a characteristic present at the entity or its environment that could potentially give rise to a risk of material misstatements. Again, not all risk are risk of material misstatements. We also need to consider the factors that may be qualitative or quantitative, such as maybe the complexity, the subjectivity, the change, uncertainty, or susceptibility to misstatements due to management bias or other fraud risk factors to the extent that they affect the inherent risk. So again, narinig na natin yung inherent risk, diba? We evaluate the existence of risk factor when they lie on the risk spectrum. Many risk factors we identify will never become risk of material misstatements that require further audit procedure. In fact, on our engagements here in Deloitte, we are able to easily and quickly dispose many of these risk factors. That is, we determine the risk factors that do not represent the risk of material misstatements, and this determining requires a very little judgment. Okay, now we go back again to the audit process muna. So we talk about the entity level risk assessment. Okay. And a part of this is we also need to understand the process and IT application. So, paano ba siya ginagawa sa audit? So, when we are engaged in with a client, ang una namin ginagawa is, una natin gagawin in the future is that we need to set up or we need to schedule with the client to confirm our understanding of the processes. So ano ba yung mga processes? Again, we are not going to test all those processes. We are only going to test all those processes that have an impact on our audit procedures and will have an impact on our risk assessment. So ano ba yung mga processes na yun? Ang number one na pinaka-important is yung financial close and reporting process. Yung financial close and reporting process, that includes, for example, yung mga how the entity prepares the financial statements, ano ba yung mga controls na ginagawa ng entity for them to be able to prepare and present a financial statements in accordance with an applicable financial framework. Ano ba yung mga example ng mga controls na yon? So let's say, ang control na ginagawa nila is merong let's say the accounting manager will perform a detailed review on the financial statements, on the balance sheet and accounts based on the supporting documents. In example ng financial close and reporting process. So for example, if meron ka mga top-up audit adjustments, so for example, depreciation, foreign currency translation, or let's say mga accruals, etc., it is part of your financial close reporting process. Ano pa ba yung mga example nun? Revenue process. So for revenue process of a telecommunication, it is very, how would I say, it's very special for the telecommunication because ano ba yung mga example? Later, kung nabasa niyo yung annual report ni Globe, they have several revenue streams, di ba? And it's not present to all other industry. And tayo, as an auditor, we need to have a deeper understanding on how they calculate the revenue and how it will impact all other factors in the financial reporting process or how it impact on the financial statements. There's also some processes such as the inventory, maybe for other accounts, meron kang inventory, let's say goods and services, but for telecommunications, hindi siya masyadong malaki or relevant. And let's say you have the property, plant, equipment, or let's say expenditure and capitalization cycle or process. We have also the treasury cycle, or yung iba, tinatawag nila yung na P2P or process to payment process. Yung mga ganong processes. So again, ang pag-understand natin sa mga processes is always coming from the understanding of the entity and its environment, which is this part. So if we don't have a very deep understanding or knowledge of the entity, then we might not be able to have, or we might not be able to identify a process that is relevant to our audit. Kaya nga, di ba, kung mapapansin nyo, it is a process. So we start off with the entity level and then we go to the process level risk assessment. So when we talk about understanding the process, again, we go for an interview, we ask for what is the process. Again, it is important for us to document our understanding in our audit file. And then in our understanding of the audit file, we perform walkthroughs. That is to confirm our understanding. So when we talk about walkthrough, it should be end-to-end, from initiation up to the reporting to the financial statements. So in a walkthrough, we are going to get only one sample from beginning to end. So example nun is on the property, plant, and equipment process. So ang first na magiging process nun is on the initiation or maybe requisition of the property, plant, equipment. So maybe each department will submit a purchase requisition form to the department head, and then they will approve it, and then the next process will be for bidding, and after bidding it will be the sending out of the purchase order to the supplier, and then delivery, and then after the delivery it will be let's say yung paano na siya i-depreciate on the financial statements, disposal, as well as the impairment of that specific fixed asset. So, ganun natin ginagawa yung walkthrough natin. Again, end-to-end, we need to obtain only one document for us to understand yung pinaka-process. And then on that understanding, we also need to check whether the control, again here, the control that we have identified in our entity level risk assessment is working as designed, being implemented by the control performer, as well as whether it is operating effectively based on our walkthrough documentation. Now, as you can see here, they also mentioned about IT applications. So right now, kung mapapansin nyo, even for all industry or for all company, they are now employing IT applications in their business. Some of the entities or industry are heavily dependent on the IT. Ano ba example nun? For example, for a bank. Ngayon, lahat via system na, di ba? Via information technology system na. So wala kang nakikita sa mga banks na mano-mano nila sinusulat yun sa general ledger nila. At the click of a button, automatically everything is interfaced to the system. So it is the same case with telecommunication. So an example is when you have a call in your mobile phone, or when you send out a text, or when you receive a text from abroad, everything is being recorded. I mean, that transaction is being recorded in the system. At the same way, like say, yung mga load natin ngayon sa mga phone natin, or for example, if yung nasa postpaid plan ka or prepaid plan ka, kung paano nade-deduct yung prepaid load mo is being monitored by the system. As well as yung postpaid mo, doon na din naman siya, ano ba yung mga remaining data pa na nasa account mo. So, although that's very practical din naman. So, for example, magkano na lang yung loan na natitira sa akin. Or if I made a call outside the Philippines, so meron din siyang mga data roaming and etc. So yung mga financial information na yun are being captured by the system. Wala na ngayon na mano-mano sinusulat yun sa general ledger nila or sa yellow pad nila or sa mga books nila, especially for a specialized industry just like a telecommunication company. So lahat yun, they are using IT system. That's why it is important for us to have an understanding of the IT application. At this point of the IT application, it is important for us to engage an IT specialist or an expert in that in the IT application for them to test it. Because as for example, as for financial statements statutory auditor, we are not in that expertise pa lang to perform a specific audit of the IT system. But what is important is that we as a financial statements auditor have knowledge on what will be the impact of that IT application in our audit of the financial statements. So, yun yung pinaka-reason why we need to have an understanding, a deep understanding and knowledge of the processes as well as the IT applications. Here also, we look at the controls. We need to evaluate the design and determine the implementation of the controls. Now, if, for example, we have determined that the controls, whether it's manual control or an automated control, then we need to determine whether it is designed as what it's supposed to do, and we also need to check whether it is implemented as what it is designed for. So if we have determined that it is not, again, not designed and not implemented, those control, then we cannot rely on that control, whether it's manual or automated control. So when we talk about the design of the control, then we need to look at the following factors. So it's the factors that we need to consider when we are evaluating the design of a control. So again, ang tanong natin sa kanya is, yung control ba, is naka-design ba siya for us to determine a misstatement? Again, nagkakaroon lang tayo ng misstatement if the control is not functioning or is not designed, is not implemented, or is not operating effectively. That's the only time that we have a misstatement. And if, for example, wala talagang control, then we are expecting that we are going to have a higher risk on that specific assertion. So again, we look at first on evaluating the design. Again, sa control, meron tayong tatlong kailangan i-check. Is it designed appropriately? Is it being implemented as what it is designed for? And is it operating effectively? There are some cases na, okay, ite-test ko yung, if I want to rely on that control, then I need to test the 3 items. Again, if I believe that the control is relevant to my audit, then I need to test the design, implementation, and then whether it's operating effectively for that specific control. Now, we go to the design of a control first. So these are the factors that we need to consider when we are evaluating the design of a control. So the first one would be the appropriateness of the purpose of the control and its correlation to the risk or assertion. Second is the competence and authority of the person performing the control. So for example, let's say here, ang chine-check mo na assertion, again, we always look at ano ba yung assertion na tinetest mo. Example is cut-off assertion on the revenue. So sa cut-off assertion on the revenue, kailangan natin makakita ng control that will address that assertion. So again, we look at first the FS line item, and then of course sa telecommunication nakikita natin na maybe isang significant na account doon is the revenue. As you can see here, ang revenue ni Globe is 162 billion pesos. So automatically, it is material and it will have an impact on your financial statements. So automatically, this revenue is a significant account because of its impact on the financial statement as well as the materiality. So here, ang kailangan mo gawin muna dito is on the revenue, ano ba yung mga control na pwedeng mag-address dito sa revenue account na to. But before we look at ano ba yung mga control na yun, we need to look at the assertion first. Again, kapag nag-audit tayo, FS line item muna, let's say here, revenue, and then ang next natin i-check is ano ba yung mga assertion. Sa assertion ng revenue, meron tayong occurrence, maybe completeness, maybe cut-off. Yun yung mga yun. Of course, existence is a balance sheet, account siya, or balance sheet assertion siya, di ba? So the existence is not applicable for revenue. So here, we look at the revenue first, FS line item, and the second one, that's the account item. The second is the assertion. So the assertion for revenue is, let's say, cut-off. Now, we are going to look at ano ba yung mga control to address the cut-off assertion. So when we look at the cut-off assertion for revenue only, is we look at, okay, ano ba yung appropriate control and its relation to the cut-off assertion. The competence of the authority. So for example, ang na-identify ko na cut-off assertion, na-identify ko na control on the cut-off assertion ng revenue is someone is checking whether let's say the postpaid revenue is being monitored correctly. So ganun siya. So yun yung pinaka-control ko. So again, we also need to look at the risk of material misstatement. So in other words, ito yung mga what could go wrongs natin. Ano ba yung mga risk of material misstatement natin related to cut-off? So ang pinaka what could go wrong doon or yung risk of material misstatements natin is yung revenue is not properly recorded at the correct period. Yun yung risk of material misstatements mo. And then the company should have a control to address that risk of material misstatement, which is a cut-off error. So cut-off error kasi yun. So when we are looking at evaluating the design of a control, then we look at also the competence and the authority. So for example lang, team is ang nagpa-perform ng control is, let's say, a fresh graduate. Do you think that they are competent and they have the authority in performing the control? So, what do you think, team? Do you think that they are? So maybe you can, here on the slide, you can use your annotate button to yes or no. So for example, nakita natin na nagpa-perform ng control, na nag-check whether the revenue is properly recorded in the correct period, is a fresh graduate, and then siya lang yung nag-check na without any further review. Do you think that they are competent and have the authority to perform the control? Yes or no? What do you think? So again, students, meron tayong mga person, Nina and Miss Ethel, that is monitoring our engagement or our participation in this workshop. So what do you think? If for example, for example, that the control performer is a fresh grad without na nagpa-perform ng control na yon, checking whether the revenue is properly recorded or not, do you think that they are competent or they are in the authority to perform the control? What do you think? You can use your annotate button or you can use the chat box to provide your answer. What do you think? Any opinion, students, about that specific example? whether a fresh graduate is, let's say, without any experience, without any industry exposure, is competent and has the authority to perform a cut-off procedures. Okay, thank you, Rosario. The answer is no. So if you believe, again, throughout the audit, we are using our professional judgment when we are doing all this design. So again, if you said no, it is not competent, they don't have the authority to perform a control, then the design of a control may not be working as you have designed it. So again, bagsak na kagad siya on the design pa lang. So kasi ano siya, parang process siya. We are checking the design of a control. After we have determined that the design is okay, then we go through the implementation and then whether it is operating effectively. So, ganun yung mga factors niya. And then the third one is the frequency and consistency which the control is performed. So, pag sinabi nating consistency naman, is we consider the nature of the control and the information that is used in the performance of the control. We also consider the amount of judgment involved in performing the control. And we also consider whether the control is performed and whether the frequency is appropriate. So, example naman, again natin, on the cut-off procedures for revenue. So, ang cut-off procedures na nakita natin is, okay, yung revenue is ginagawa siya on a monthly basis kasi yung preparation ng financial statements nila is on a monthly basis. And then, instead of a fresh graduate, ang gumagawa o nagpa-perform ng control na yun, ang nakita natin is actually the accounting manager who has been in the company for 10 years and undergoing all those trainings and etc. So again, the frequency is on a monthly basis because it's the time that they are performing or they are preparing the financial statements. So do you think that the frequency of the performance of the control is okay ba siya? Is it designed as effective is it consistent? So what do you think? Monthly basis for the cut-off assertion or cut-off procedures, what do you think? Is it yes or a no? Yung frequency niya. Anyone? May point na si Rosario, 1 point. Rosario ba or si Amor? Amor, anong kailangan itawag ko sa iyo? Rosario, Amor. Amor na lang or Rosario? Amor, okay. Si Amor pala. Okay, so what do you think, guys? Kapag monthly basis ba yung pag-check mo ng revenue cut-off because ang sasabi ng company is kasi I am preparing the financial statements on a monthly basis. That's why I am doing my control on a monthly basis. Do you think it's a yes or a no? It's a yes for you? Is it a yes for you? Is it a no for you? What do you think, guys? Yes, okay. Meron pa bang iba? Okay, yes, appropriate. Okay. And yes is correct answer. Because yung frequency naman or yung control naman, you don't need it to perform on a daily basis. Diba? Kasi yung cut-off mo, again, ang tinitingnan mo kasi on everything, that is what we are discussing, is ano ba impact niya on the financial statements. On the prepaid load or prepaid revenue or the postpaid revenue, ang financial statements preparation mo is on a monthly basis. That's why your control should be working on a monthly basis because that's the time that you are preparing the financial statements. So, ganun siya. So, that's the frequency and consistency with which the control is performed. And then, the fourth design factor is the level of the aggregation and the predictability. So we focus on the level at which the control is performed. So, for example, we need to ask ourselves when we are performing or we are checking the level of aggregation whether is the control performed at the lowest level of aggregation, which is typically the transaction level, or is it performed at a more aggregated level? It is also a control that is performed at a more detailed level, generally is more precise than one performed at a higher level. So, tama naman yun. The more detailed the level is, so doon mo mas nakikita kung yung control ba is nagpa-perform as you have designed it. And then the precision of these controls also depends on the predictability of the transactions or account subject to the control. The more predictable the expected result is, the greater the precision to identify the potential material misstatements. And lastly, the criteria for investigation and process to follow up. So, itong criteria for investigation naman is these are the two important things to consider when evaluating this design factor. So, the first one is the threshold for investigation. So, when we talk about the threshold, is okay, lahat ba ng exception is in-investigate ba ng company ni client or not? And so, for example, if meron siyang certain threshold is kung if this enough for them to capture yung any potential misstatements. So, yun yung, for example, so here, ang ating materiality na nakita natin is let's say 1 billion. But, ang threshold na ginamit ni client is let's say 10 billion. So, pag sabi natin criteria for investigation is, so example, ang revenue account ko is based on this control is, okay, ang control performer is i-check niya lang if meron mga misstatements na more than 10 billion pesos, yun lang yung time na i-investigate ko. Any amount below 10 billion, I will just ignore it and I will just sleep on it lang. Yun ang gagawin. Yun ang sasabi ng, yun ang design ng control. But, your materiality in our audit is only 1 billion pesos. So, yes or no again, guys? Do you think that the design of the control, check ba siya? When we are talking about the fifth design factor, which is criteria for investigation and process for follow-up. Again, ang scenario natin is, based sa control na binigay sa atin ni Globe Telecom is, I will only investigate a misstatement or an exception in my cut-off procedure if for all misstatements or for all deviations or for all exceptions above 10 billion pesos. Again, the materiality that we have set for our testing is only 1 billion pesos. So do you think that for the last factor in our design of a control, is it sufficient for us to say that the design of a control is enough for us to mention that the control is designed as what it's supposed to do? Yes or no? No daw, sabi ni Roverson. No. Okay. Okay, good. That's good. So the answer is no. Because kung merong misstatement dyan na even 2 million, and ikaw kasi ang materiality ko is, again, the materiality is ito yung amount na magkakaroon ng material impact on the financial statements is only 1 billion pesos. So as on the management perspective, wala akong pakialam kung 2 billion yan kasi ang materiality, ang threshold na sinet ko sa sarili ko is 10 billion. So for our purpose, hindi siya designed as effectively yung control na yun. So doon sa mga nakikita natin, again, we're only go through the implementation or the operating effectiveness of a control if the design factor is checked para yun sa atin. We cannot proceed on the next process or stage of the reliance on the control if the design factor or the design of the control is not for our purpose of audit. Again, ito, may tricky question ako sa inyo, guys. Nina and Miss Ethel, ito 2 points to para sa 2 points to sa mga minomonitor nyo. Ang tanong ko sa inyo, guys, is can I not rely on the control and perform substantive testing directly? So, kunyari, ang strategy ko is, okay, hindi na ako magpa-perform ng testing ng control, pero ang gagawin ko is direct substantive testing na kagad. Ano ang sagot nyo? You can come unmute to explain your answer. Kapag nag-come unmute ka, meron ka additional 5 points. Sige, sinong brave soul dyan or may additional bragging rights pa? Ano sa tingin nyo? Can I directly do full substantive testing and not perform test of control? Ano sa tingin? Sabi ni ni Mariel is yes. When the internal control is weak, yes. If the assessed risks are high, especially the control risk, yes. If by professional judgment, the control is not effective, okay. Okay. Ang sasabi natin is, so pwede naman daw, sabi nila, sabi ni Mariel, no, okay, meron tayong iba't ibang pulso ng bayan, no? So merong nagsasabi na yes, may nagsasabi ng no. Okay, how about yung ibang mga participants natin dito na around, naman tayo, nasa around 250 participants tayo. What do you think? Can I go directly to the test of details or substantive testing and completely ignore the control testing? What do you think? Again, may additional points kapag kayo ay ayan. Oo nga, tama nga naman. Tama nga naman siya sabi ni Miss Ethel na kailangan daw nyong mag-respond to everyone para na-monitor nila yung mga sagot niyo. Huwag rin kayo mag-respond lang kay Nina and kay Miss Ethel kasi kailangan ko rin mabasa yung mga response niyo, di ba? And if kayo ay brave soul na magka-come unmute at magkasalita sa buong group natin, may additional 5 points kayo. So what do you think? Any brave soul? Mag-raise na lang kayo ng hands niyo kung gusto niyo magsalita for additional 5 points. Okay, wala na bang brave soul dito na magka-come unmute para magsabi ng kanilang opinion? Okay, again guys, wag po tayong mag-direct message sa akin kasi kailangan din siya makita ni Miss Ethel and ni Nina para sa inyong mga points. Okay. Balik tayo, okay? So, ang tamang sagot ay tayo dito ha. Oops. Ang tamang sagot ay it depends. So, again, why ang sagot ay it depends? Because there are some cases na you need to perform test of control because the substantive testing or the substantive testing cannot provide you a sufficient audit evidence for you to support the audit, for you to support the audit opinion that you will release to the company. Ano ba mga example na nun? Example na lang is telecommunication. Kung ikaw ay mag-test of detail or substantive testing for a telecommunication industry, paano mo i-vouch ang mga calls or paano mo i-vouch 100% or maybe based on your something, no? Paano mo i-vouch yung mga nakarga o nawalang load sa mobile phone or sa account mo if you don't plan to rely on the control related to it? Diba? Paano mo siya i-vouch? Now, there are some cases that you can do 100% substantive testing if, katulad ng mga sinabi ng mga classmates natin dito, is if, for example, the control is not effective. So, why are you going to test the control if you believe that there is no control or the control is not designed as appropriate or not implemented or not operating effectively? So again, you cannot rely on the control or you cannot perform further tests of controls if you believe that the control is not effective. Yung second is, yung control reliance naman is if you don't intend to rely on the control because of some specific cases or specific reason, but again, the answer is it depends on first in the industry and on your understanding of the processes and again your professional judgment if you believe that it is more efficient for you or more effective for you to perform 100% test of details. So example nun is, let's say ang company na ino-audit natin ay holding company na ang transaction ay 5 lang for the whole year. Ano lang siya, cash collection, tapos interest income, gano'n lang ang mga transaction niya. So, it is more efficient for you to perform substantive testing rather than go through the process of identifying control. And then, kasi ang control naman is, as you can see here, ang control is it will have an impact on your substantive testing. Diba? So again, if you are working on a very specialist industry such as telecommunications, maybe banking, maybe insurance companies or other specialist industry, you are required to perform test of control because the substantive testing is not sufficient for us to have these audit evidences. Kasi nga naman, paano mo i-vouch or paano mo ito-trace yung revenue dun sa mga manual na yon, di ba? Kasi, naisip nyo ba guys, let's say sa bank, sa sobrang dami ng interest income nun or withdrawals nun, paano mo siya i-vouch, di ba? Kung if you're not going to perform a test of control. So again, it always depends on the industry, our risk assessment, as well as our understanding of the internal control. Okay, before we move on the account and assertion level risk assessment, do you have any questions? Yung questions, may points din yun. Any questions? Again, i-message nyo yung mga questions ninyo sa group para mamomonitor namin yung mga nagpa-participate. Any questions? Okay, I give 1 minute for you guys to post your questions. Okay, so I guess walang questions inyong lahat. So we proceed na on our audit process diagram. So again, we are now done. Okay, tapos na tayo sa entity level risk assessment as well as process level risk assessment. So again, we are only going to rely on the control if we believe, based on our audit procedures, based on our professional judgment, that the design and the implementation as well as whether the controls are operating effectively. So yun yung sa part ng process level risk assessment. Now, we go through the identification of significant accounts and disclosure as well as identification and assessment of our risk assessment. So itong mga items na to naman is itong mga to naman is ito na pag-usapan natin kanina is again, ang number one natin i-check is when we receive the financial statements of the company is we look at the FS line item, we identify the significant accounts and disclosure, including the disclosure, important din yung disclosure. And then after that one is we are assessing the risk of material misstatements, whether it's lower, higher, and significant. Now, when we talk about higher, lower, or significant, iba't iba siya ng reason. So for example, if it's a complex transaction, then your risk assessment is on the higher spectrum. So meron tayong tatlong spectrum: lower risk, higher risk, and a significant risk. So kung may imagine nyo guys, is meron tayong FS line item, ito, let's say revenue, and then sa revenue, meron siyang two types of revenue: service revenue and non-service revenue. Yung mga non-service revenue, it includes, say,